Welcome back to another episode of the ARC Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Zachary. If you're new tuning in, thank you for joining. This is the Athletes Resilience Center podcast, where we talk all things mental performance in sports. We have an awesome episode for you this week. We interviewed CJ Appenzeller, who is the owner of ATS Appenzeller Training Systems, which is an adult and sports performance gym located in South Jersey. Now they are expanding, and this was a really cool episode because CJ was actually both Matt and I's strength coach when we played in college and when we were both trying to play professionally. So we have some awesome conversations and reminisce about some stories in the gym that we had with CJ. We go over CJ's story and his journey on how he became a business owner and strength coach, how he started as a collegiate baseball player and ultimately turned to the weight room and coaching as his calling, how training just a handful of athletes in the beginning created this fire and passion for CJ to continue and create this business that he runs today. We go into the mindset of running a successful business and how to grow and scale your business, how to train new employees in order to create the environment that you want to create, especially in a gym, how to build community within your gym and the people that attend. CJ shares some mental insights on what really motivates athletes and makes them perform at their highest level. We go over why it's important to find out what actually drives an athlete and what their actual why is while coaching them through strength training. We go through his growth as a coach and how he's developed over the years. And we go over the overall landscape of sports and how you can get the most out of your athletes, both physically and mentally. This was a great episode, and I hope you guys enjoy. CJ, thanks for coming on, man. We really appreciate your time and are excited to interview you and go through your story. You know, with our history with you, this is awesome and a long time coming. So how we doing tonight, CJ?
Oh, great, man. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Cool full circle moment. I was telling my wife, she's like, whose podcast is it? I was like, these two really lively ex-athletes of mine who just love talking mental performance over a couple of beers. No, but in all seriousness, it is a cool full circle moment. I love to see you guys trying to give back to this community that is athletes and ex-athletes and hopefully inspire another generation, for me, selfishly, of coaches who maybe come into my sphere and or at least impact the next kind of flock of athletes. And that's really like my big goal and dream right now, is to impact the community at large. So.
No, that's awesome. I love that. And, you know, we've been around you for so long that, you know, you've obviously had an impact on the two of us and our playing careers and leading us to this moment right now. So very appreciative for you and kind of the time that you've spent with us. And I think that's a perfect place to kick it back to you and let you kind of go through your journey on how you got to where you are today and how ATS kind of started.
Yeah, awesome. And this is a story I really like to tell. I don't want to make it a 90 minutes of just me kind of splurging on the story, but the part that everyone finds very interesting is I started my business with a B&E, right? A breaking and entering, not a bacon and egg. Chill out over there, Mo. So, you know, when I went to college, I played Division III baseball at the number one school in the nation. Shout out Shenandoah University at the time. And when I got there, I quickly realized that, number one, I wasn't physical enough to compete at that level. And number two, that I really, really fell in love in my second semester there with the weight room, and with not only the weight room, but also with coaching, right? I was coaching my roommate, Brandon, at the time. I would drag him to the weight room, and, you know, we'd get after it, and I'd work with him on these different, like, things I was making up, you know, these different training plans, different exercises, these different ideas around periodization and trying to maximize performance. So, you know, I come home from that second semester, and somebody, I think it was Twitter at the time, like Instagram wasn't really a thing yet, and one of my friends saw me posting training on Twitter and was like, hey, I would love for you to train me, this kid. And I said, cool, where? He's like, I got the perfect spot, you know. I got this batting cage we can go into. And it's funny because all of us have been to this batting cage.
Yeah.
So it was Blue Chip was the name of it. And so we get there there's like the back door is a garage door, like an old school garage door with one missing section. And we like walk through this section and we go in. There's like a couple of kettlebells, a couple of dumbbells. I'm training this guy that invited me and another guy. And I'm like, we good to be in here? They're like, yeah, no worries. Middle of the day. Well, the owner of the place comes in, flicks the lights on in the office, and I'm like, uh-oh, this is bad news right here. So I just decide I'm going to like completely commit to the gig and just keep coaching. So he comes out, he's like, what the hell are you doing here? I'm like, I'm just coaching, man. Give me 1 second. Hold on. I'm coaching up a kettlebell swing, like a 26-pound kettlebell swing. Like, can't even swing a 26-pounder, but whatever. So I'm coaching it up. And then at the end, that guy's name is Jim, and Jim and I are good friends to this day. I just ran into him last year, which was awesome. But Jim goes, hey, you're going to interview for a job with me. And that's how ATS was born. I went in, worked for Jim a little bit, and then wound up subletting the space. So I think that the things to pull from that conversation and kind of my story getting started is, number one, don't be afraid to start. Number two, when you feel a passion calling you, right? I'm still a college ball player at the time, but I felt called to the weight room. I felt called to sports performance training. I felt called to coaching, really, and that's the most important thing. When you feel that passion calling you, don't be afraid to entertain it a little bit, or at least start to go down that path. And there's a lot of different ways you can kind of dip your toe into things without completely shifting out of one thing into another. But I think it's a pretty powerful idea, is like, follow that passion. So to give you the 60-second spiel of where the business is today. So we started, like I said, in that blue chip subletting space, 550 square feet. We went from there to a 2,100 square feet location in Berlin. Then that location became 5,000. That location became 7,200, 7,500 square foot, which is, we're still in that Berlin location. But we also added small group personal training studios in Haddonfield, Medford, and Mount Laurel as well. They're a different name. They're Active Personal Training. So we now have 4 locations, 5 programs operating under the kind of A-Team umbrella, we call it. So that A-Team umbrella is servicing like just shy of 500 people month in and month out right now, which is something I'm pretty proud of. Not just me, but more so my team, which maybe we'll get into that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love your story, and like being a part of it and seeing, building to building and now seeing you grow and seeing all the different locations is so cool and awesome. So honestly, like super cool to watch you go through all that and continue to have success. It's awesome. But I'd love to go back to your transition you talked about, right? You started coaching as an athlete, which I think is really unique. But at that time, like, was there a transition in your brain from like, hey, maybe I had this dream to be a professional athlete. Now I'm transitioning into this coaching role. I might even like or want to chase a little bit more than that. Or was it kind of a tough transition for you? Because I know, coming from 2 people that had the professional aspiration and also kind of coached on the side a little bit, it was like, well, the main goal, I want to be a professional athlete, but like maybe I'll dip my toe in the coaching a little bit. Like what did that transition look like for you?
Yeah, I think I had a really good friend my freshman year of college. He was actually the best man at my wedding, full circle, right? But
Awesome.
I remember telling him, and this is like what good friends are really like. If you find somebody like this, they're really special. Hold on to them. I remember telling him that I wanted to be a professional baseball player my freshman year of college, and he looked at me and was like, "That's never going to happen." Like, as a coach, I would never say that probably to an athlete.
Right.
Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. I think the context would be very, very telling there, because you can almost never know. But it's like a 19-year-old. Like, he looked at me and he's like, dude, like, that's not going to happen. So I really appreciate him saying that. And I think right there is when I started to transition over to like coaching. Like, I knew I could be great at coaching. And I always tell the story, like, I didn't know that a strength and conditioning coach was a thing. I was like Googling what to do for training.
Yeah.
For like,
right.
And I found another strength coach's like website, and I was like, what is this? And I was like, next to his bio page, I was like, what do you do? Who are you?
Yes, right.
Before that, like, you're talking about, my freshman year of college was 2011. Yeah, 10 into 11. Yeah, I graduated high school 2010. So 2011. In 2011, there was like 3 strength coaches in the private sector in the world. Like, there was like,
Yeah.
And I'm lucky enough to be friends with some of those guys today, and they're still going, some of them, but like, I didn't even know it was an option. So once I found out that was an option, A, and B, the realization of like, dude, you're not going to play professionally. Like, you can't even start right now. You're not even making the starting lineup right now.
Yeah.
You're going to just bubble over everybody. Yeah. Like, he was like, dude, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Which I thought was that level of radical self-awareness and from me after the fact, and his ability to be radically honest in that moment was pretty telling. So that was like the quick transition. But I think everybody still fights that, right? Like, so much of who you are is baseball player, baseball player, baseball player. And when it goes to become a coach, like especially early times, early days of coaching, your ego drives so much of the way you coach, and essentially you're less effective because of it, right? That's not the way I would have done it. I could do more. I could do better. I'd push harder. All those things, even if you don't verbalize them, hopefully you don't, right? But even if you don't verbalize them, there's an internal dialogue that you have to silence and squelch to some level about, trying to actually be a coach. And what is a coach, right? A coach is someone who takes someone from where they are to where they're trying to go. And the only way to effectively do that is two things. Number one, it's permission-based, right? So I have to earn your trust to get your permission to coach you. I'm super lucky that, the two guys interviewing me right now, both at some level during their career, gave me the permission to coach them, gave me the permission to be radically honest with them, gave me the permission to help them goal set and then realize, right? That's number one. And then number two, you have to be able to connect with the individual, right? I always say to like our intern classes and stuff, I'm always like, hey, listen, like, a squat is a squat is a squat, a split squat is a split squat is a split squat, a sprint is a sprint is a sprint, except it means something completely different to every single person that walks in the door, right? If you walk in the door right now, Zach, I can tell you for sure a split squat means something very different than it did when you were playing baseball at TCNJ and training with me, right? Split squat then meant maybe 1 more mile an hour, right? One more pump on the season. And now it probably means being strong for your son, right?
Right.
And when you can connect with someone and you know them and you get their permission to coach them, you can dig in on those things that are most important to them. You can turn off your old quote unquote identity of athlete, and instead you can step into a full-fledged coaching role. And the most effective coach is the coach that meets you where you are and takes you to where you're trying to go with that kind of underlying principle of like, why is this important to you, right? And we could get into that, but I think what it comes down to is, as an athlete, you are wrapped into your own identity. And as a coach, the most important thing is the identity of the person on the other side, the receiving end.
Right. No, I think that's brilliantly put, is that identity as a coach is to serve others. And I know you've been preaching that since, we were in college and we trained with you, is, your job is to serve others. And like you said, meet them at the point where they allow you to be able to coach them and you lead them in the direction that they want to go. Now, how early on were you able to identify these kind of principles, right? Because I think that's another tough thing. You probably start strength and conditioning coaching, and you think in your brain, like, the most important aspect of this is making sure, like you said, every single exercise this is the most perfect squat that we're going to do no matter what. But like you said, I feel like half the battle is your level of leadership, your level of being able to meet people where they are and help motivate them to get to them to where they want to go. Like, how early on in the process did you kind of learn the importance of that versus like, we're just going to make sure every squat is perfect, every bench is perfect, and then, once you're out the door, you're out the door. We're not really focused on any of the other stuff.
Yeah, I'm kind of embarrassed to answer this question because I think it took me longer than it really should have. Right? I think I had it easier early on because my first crop of athletes, which again, a lot of full circle moments. There's been just a lot of full circle moments in my life recently as I get older, right? So one of my first ever athletes was Matt Lawson, right? A guy we know, right? Shout out Nastasi's Fine Furniture. Sorry, I didn't know if I could do free plugs in here, but no. Matt was like one of my first athletes. He was also my summer ball teammate. So for me to have like the permission to coach Matt was inherent because he was my boy. And if your boy comes to you for help, you have their permission, right? Because otherwise they would never come to you, right? And the full circle moment that I kind of alluded to is that he still trains in our adult program now in Berlin, which is like
awesome.
It's insane, right?
Yeah,
so, like,
that's awesome.
We have multiple. This Friday is the Appies, which you guys know is essentially the Grammys on steroids.
Yeah.
It's our biggest awards event of the year. We have
Yes.
130. We sold out 130 seats in 5 days.
Ooh,
We
let's
have
go.
we have over 10 people that have been training for over 10 years that will be in attendance with us. So it's
That's awesome.
like I don't know how else to say, like, full circle moment, full circle moment. But so to answer the question, get back to the answer. Sorry, I'm good at that kind of tangent.
No,
Um,
you're good. You're
yeah,
good,
so
man.
it's like I had it really easy early on. That whole first crop was like my teammates and my friends. So I had the permission and it was inherent and I didn't have to think about anything else other than the X's and O's because I knew them so well and because
Right.
we were so close to each other in journey and goal that I was essentially coaching a mirror, right? I think the second crop of athletes that came through, I was training eighth graders, like 12, 13, 14-year olds. It was like my crew. And that's when the ego, again, I'm embarrassed to say, that's when the ego was so prevalent. And even now, we still have some like the videos and stuff. They're lingering around somewhere. Like the ego was so prevalent. It was so much about like what I would have done if I was in your seat, knowing what I
Right.
know now. And it's
Yeah.
like there's power in looking back, and there's power in being a bit of a historian in that way. You know,
Yeah.
I flex that historian muscle quite a bit in our facilities now, but I think it would have been significantly better, and those athletes would have had a significantly better journey had I been able to squelch the ego sooner and, like you said, focus on the principles of coaching that are beyond X's and O's. I think our training was like ahead of its time, probably, but I think my communication and my leadership ability was way subpar, especially when compared to today, when my only job today is simply to lead. Right, I coach 4 or 5 hours a week. That's it. And that's just really like 1.5 groups, right? I have one group of pro baseball guys that train with us. We cut it off at 10. So, of course, I have 12. I don't market it. Yeah, so they come in, and I'm blessed to have those guys that trust me. Again, some of them, Ryan Weingartner's in that group. He started training with me when he was 9 years old. It's like he got drafted last year by St. Louis Cardinals. It was like all these full circle moments. You guys mentioned DC. I'm not sure if he told you. I broke it last week on a podcast. He's officially retired from baseball. Um, like that's the first ever professional athlete that trusted me with his career. I was with him all the way from Boston College. It was like essentially it came out to like over 14 years of training
Yeah.
with me.
Yeah.
I think it was 15 all in, but carry a one here or there, whatever it was. But like again, full circle moment. Somebody trusted me enough to entrust their livelihood for 15 years. The vast majority of what DC and I would talk about, and I'm sure as you guys, any of your listeners that listen to his episode, he's not a big X's and O's guy, right? A lot of what we were talking about was like, hey man, this is the mindset that's going to be required to show up day in and day out. These are the principles by which you can. And the thing I'm most proud of in DC is that, like, all the years of DC looking at me as the leader, looking at me as the coach, I'm looking at him now for inspiration and being a father because he's a little bit ahead of me with Donnie, so I'm like kind of copying off him. Like, what do you got going on over there? I want to know more about him
Yeah.
because he's a tremendous father, right? So that's like, I said this last week on a podcast, like, and it brought me to tears, but it's like the most proud moments of my coaching journey are the ones that I had the wherewithal to communicate effectively early on, or in the case of the DCs of the world, the Ryan Weingartners of the world, that the athlete was patient enough for me to develop into the leader that they deserved.
Right. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, kind of dive in a little bit, like, you kind of gave us a story and everything. Let's hone in a little bit on like the realization that this is going to become like a business for you, right? Like, you're kind of at the first gym, and I'm sure like no one gives you a free trial and like, hey, this is how you're going to start up a business. This is how you're going to turn this into a business.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't grow on trees. So how did you kind of hone those skills, turn this from just, training people, right, into an actual full scale business?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it comes back to, so our business has 5 core values. And one of the things that we worked really hard on as a team, myself as an individual in those early days, is honing in on like what was going to make us different, special, and ultimately what we would be able to broadcast out into the world and hopefully inspire people with. And one of those things is what we call the hard hat principle, right? And it's this concept of every single day being consistent, even when you can't be intense, right? So we always have it. Every single one of our core values has a shadow phrase. So the shadow phrase of the hard hat principle is that consistency beats intensity. So to answer your question about the business piece, I realized like I don't really know what I'm doing, but I understand that there's two kind of currencies, two currencies that you can utilize early on, right? You can either utilize money or you can utilize time or hustle, right? And I had no money. So I said to myself, I was like, well, if we're going to be able to pay the rent, which is the first hurdle, right? It's not, hey, I want to be a career strength coach. I want to, like, now we like our employees like are on salary and have IRA benefits and health insurance stipends and like all the things, right? It's like I never thought about any of that initially, right? It's just me, and you're like, all right, I got to make the rent. So those initial days were the understanding of I didn't have money, but I had hustle, I had time, so it was just hours. It was hours. So the initial transition from hey, this is my hobby to this is my business was when the guy at Blue Chip, not Jim, the other guy who was our landlord, said, "Hey man, rent's due on the 1st. So what do you got?" That's when I knew. I was like, "Oh, this is a business because I have to get something out of this."
Right.
And I think early on we were $5 a workout, and then we went and we just cash because I didn't know any other way. And then somebody was like, "Can I give you a check for $50?" And I was like, "Oh shit! Like I don't know where I'm gonna cash the check, but yeah." Like we transitioned to 10 and then 15, and I remember feeling like real weird about asking somebody for $15 for a workout. I was like, oh, I don't know, man. I remember when DC, calling back on that story, when he asked to pay me, like DC's like that kind of guy. I trained him. I never asked for anything, and then like he was like, "Yo, I want to pay you." Like this is like early on, 14, 15 years ago. He's like, "Hey, what do I owe you for today, or what do I owe you for the month?" I was like, "Oh, nothing. No, it's fine." Just full scale panic. So I say all that to say, the moment I realized it was a business was when rent was due, and it took me a while to develop into a businessman, a really long time. And again, something I'm more embarrassed to discuss. Right? I think if we look for a common theme in my leadership and my business acumen, it's that it probably took longer than it should have to develop. And the lesson there is that it's never too late. Right? You can always get better. You can always develop. You can always add more to the tool belt, to the skill set, whatever it is. So I don't know if that really answered the question, but yeah, I think
it does.
Once the rent was due, it was a business.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I know you kind of alluded to it a little bit. I don't know if our guys called it, but like you said, the intern classes, right? So I kind of want to take this down the educational route and everything, because if I may toot your horn a little bit here, right?
Hey.
Being in internship classes was, even though I'm not in that field anymore, it helped me down the road continue like my education in like coaching, right? And like any new coaches or people transitioning to coaching, they might not know that it's more than the X's and O's, as we've been saying, right? Like you have to continue your education. You have to learn what you like, and you really also have to learn what you don't like to know that you don't like it, right? Or that it doesn't work. And so I want to also give you a little deep cut here, right? So Stack Magazine, right? So I remember, my dad bringing me Stack Magazine, sending me articles and everything like that. And I remember going through my bookmarks at one point in college, like looking for a workout. And like, this is probably right after I had just started working out with you at ATS, the second one. And I remember seeing your name. I was like, man, I've probably been working out with this dude longer than I actually known for the most part, right? But I always loved like your passion for being able to put things out there and give people game, even though like people are going to do your workout in Stack Magazine, you don't even know that they're doing it, and you don't even know them personally, right? So, and then kind of tie that into the internship classes, the book sessions, like at what point in your career when you started getting the staff did you realize like, hey, maybe this is important? And then do you continue on like with those now? How have they kind of transformed and everything?
Yeah, so I think education is literally a pillar of our business, right? So we alluded to the core values earlier. We talked about hard hat. So now we're going to jump into another core value of ours, which is called always a white belt. And the shadow statement of always a white belt is you can never stop learning and growing, right? So I started very early on. I mean, when I made my first ever intern hire, I knew that he wasn't as ready to go out onto the floor and coach our people as I was. So I knew that there was a disconnect there and a gap we had to fill. So immediately I started putting it together. I think at that time it was probably like one book, like read this book and then like watch me and then you'll do it. Now we have a really comprehensive onboarding, or what we call a playbook. We use a lot of sports references in our business.
Yeah.
It's all me, right? Like we're all nerds.
Yeah.
Sports, offense and defense, special teams, playbooks. Like we have all of it, right? So
Yeah.
you know, so our playbooks now are pretty comprehensive. But to your other point about like how much of it's X's and O's, how much of it is communication, like the initial intern playbook, which is also used for our level 1 coaches, is like 50 or so. I think it's 46 total modules, and 12 of them are on training. So it's like, what are the rest about? Well, the rest are about connection, communication, leadership. I think if you know, and again, this is going to come off funny if it comes off funny, but if you know 10% more than the person you're working with, you're considered an expert. That's like by definition. So for me to just know 10% more than training, I know 10% more about training than almost everyone in the world, like objectively. So for our coaches to just level themselves up 10% over a high school baseball player or over, Bizak coming in to get right to be a great father is pretty easy. Like we can bridge that gap relatively quickly. But the gap that we can't bridge quickly, or the gap that we cannot take for granted, is the communication gap. I need to be able to meet that person where they are. It's not to say that we just pull up when somebody knows 10% more than our target market, but it is to say that we are voracious in our kind of path for more education. Now, once you're on staff, so you have playbooks, right? And you always reference those playbooks. We have a playbook for level 1 coaches, a playbook for interns, and a playbook for directors and what we call facility leaders. And then once you're on staff, there's a continuing education idea, like a thread that we pull on 20 minutes a day, every day, 5 days a week at least, right? Take Saturday and Sunday off, do what you want with your family. And then every single week we meet for a team meeting. Every single facility leader meets with me 15 minutes on top of that and at a second meeting. And then the last Monday, it used to be Tuesday, so I almost tripped over that. Last Monday of every month, we do what's called an all hands meeting, which is focused purely on increasing our skill set and really continuing education focus. We bring in speakers from across the world, experts in what they do, and try to add to our toolbox a little bit. So like we've had physical therapists, we've had mental performance experts, we've had strength conditioning coaches from the collegiate sector, mobility experts, pain specialists, neurological specialists. We've had it all, right? Come in and talk to us about how we can get better, how we can approach the person in front of us with greater tools or greater emphasis on a given kind of idea or subset of skills. So, I don't know if that answers the whole question, but yeah, continuing education, always for us, always a wipeout. You can never learn too much.
Yeah. And I think the piece about continuing education from your staff and yourself obviously builds that level of culture, right? Now, I'd love for you to talk about as well, because obviously, building your staff and the way that you want everything to look like from your end is one piece of the puzzle. Now, the other piece is building the culture for the athlete, right? And I have a little anecdote here, but, I started training with you when we were in the old Berlin building. And then we transitioned over to the new one. And I remember being like, oh my God, this place is unbelievable. So we go into this new building. And if you remember, the old building's AC didn't work that great. And then the new building's AC was phenomenal. And it's a hot summer day. And we're all in there. And the AC is just not pumping a lot. And everyone on the athlete side is complaining. Like, I don't think there was one athlete that was like, man, it's like hot in here, whatever. And I'll never forget, you didn't say a word. You hear everyone talking. And then I just see you go over, you close the garage doors. And then you put the heat up. You put the heat on and put it up. And we're like, you guys want to focus on that? All right, let's do the rest of the workout now. Everyone's dripping sweat, but I don't think anyone said one more word. And by the end of the workout, now looking back, it's one of my favorite workouts we ever had, because again, it's like now we're testing ourselves in that moment, and it goes beyond, like you said, lifting. And it's the same thing you said. I couldn't tell you what I split squatted that day, what I deadlifted that day, anything. But I remember it was hot in there and everyone was struggling. And at the end of the workout, we all looked at each other like, damn, we got through that. And that was incredible. Right. And like, I remember you right after the workout opened the garage doors and you gave like a very succinct and concise speech about like, listen, there are things that we can control and things we can't control. And I think the message and culture that was just built in that one session was very profound. But you guys are doing that session after session after session, right? Like, how do you work with athletes in order to build a culture like that, and then ultimately have athletes that are keeping other athletes accountable in the same sense, right? Because then moving forward, it was like, hey, none of us are making a peep about the temperature that is in this gym. Like, we're focused on getting better, and that's it. How did were you able to do that?
I love that. Somebody else brought up that I think it was DV was in that same workout.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
So Danny's working for the Tigers organization now. It's just so cool, man. See, doing awesome stuff. But yeah, so number one, I think I do that from time to time, and my coaches have the bandwidth to do that too. Please don't call the police on us. But stuff like that, because it teaches a few lessons, right? Number one, it teaches the idea and the concept of like, you'll never know how far you can go until you've been stretched, right?
Yeah.
And
right.
That level of resistance, that level of stretch is what kind of dictates, what you can then handle, right? That's a building of capacity, a building of resilience, to use the name of the podcast, right? So that's number one. But to answer your question about how do we do that, it's not in those grandiose gestures. It's not in those one moments, although they can be extremely powerful, right? Like you said, you still remember that to this day. I think values and standards are one of those rare things that aren't taught, they're caught, right? So values are caught, not taught. So I could sit here and tell you till I'm blue in the face about what it means to be blue collar and hard hat and lead from the front and practice the hashtag A-team and all of our values, right? But until I demonstrate it with my actions, and then the others around me demonstrate it, and then there is this kind of ripple effect of these values being lived out day in and day out, you'll never understand what it means. So I don't have to go in and do those grandiose gestures anymore because our value system has been caught by the highest level athletes in our gym and by my coaching staff. So if something's out of line, if something's not up to standard, we talk about this concept of lateral accountability, right? And here I go again with my core values. But one of our core values is lead from the front. And the shadow statement of lead from the front is that leadership requires no title. And that's where this idea of lateral accountability comes in. The youngest athlete in my gym can call out a professional athlete at any time if that professional athlete's out of line.
Yeah.
Same thing goes, lowest, quote unquote, lowest member of my staff, brand new intern. Our brand new intern, shout out to Hunter Rust. Hunter Rust is allowed to call out me at any time if I'm out of line or off our value system. And I encourage them to. I want that intern to come to me and say, yo, man, that's not hard hat, dude. Or that's not leading from the front. You're not demonstrating what you told me. You're not demonstrating something that would change someone's life one rep at a time. And if you're not, then you need to get back on track or get out, right? And that idea, that ideology, that value system that's now been caught by our highest level athletes and my entire team is how we maintain that standard without those grandiose acts. Now, if I come in or if one of my team comes in one day and it just hits them right and we have these kind of this moment, it'll happen. And I could think of like times that it's happened in the last couple of weeks, right? Where one of my guys comes in and, or an athlete comes in and he's a little off kilter and we have exactly the right thing. One way or the other. Maybe it's close the garage, turn the heat on. Maybe it's a really hard charging session. Maybe it's like the exact opposite idea where it's like, hey guys, we're going to sit, we're going to stretch. I've taken professional athletes through a 45-minute stretching session. And then they say, hey, when does the workout start? And I said, that's it, go home. And we just talk for 45 minutes. And every single time, because they're professional athletes, they argue with me. They come at my own values, right? That shit's not hard hat. I'm like, okay,
right.
Go home. Come back 2 days later. They're like, that was exactly what I needed. Thank you so much. I'm like, yeah, of course, because I'm a coach. I've done this before, right? That's the power of, again, I told you there's some power in being a historian. That's the power of it right there. I know exactly when that guy just needs a 45-minute stretch, right? We only do it here and there, but I know exactly when to pull that card out, right? So I kind of know as I go through when I'm coaching which card to pull out. My staff is getting significantly better at it too. Guys on team will know, hey, we got to pull this out. We got to pull that out. Hey, this needs, and I always say this, right? And this is from one of my favorite coaches taught me this a really long time ago. He said some athletes need a kick in the ass and some athletes need a pat on the fanny, right? So you got to know when to kick, you got to know when to pat. And I think that's what I've been able to do and what we've been able to pass on to the team.
We want to take a quick second to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by the Philly Pretzel Factory of Marlton, New Jersey. Whether it's picking up a snack between games or picking up a party tray for the big game, the Philly Pretzel Factory of Marlton has you covered. For all of your pretzel needs, make sure you stop by the Philly Pretzel Factory of Marlton, located on North Maple Ave. Let them know that the ARC podcast sent you. Now back to the episode. Yeah, no, that's excellent. And I think just working out there, I've definitely felt that sentiment, just knowing, there were definitely times when I needed a little kick in the ass and you guys were there to, administer that and make sure I'm getting on track. And then same thing, right? There's times where I probably needed that 45-minute stretch session that you're saying. And it's like, I left the gym feeling better than I could have even imagined, right? And it's like, you guys knowing when to do it and the right way to go about it is ultimately the most important. But going into, you mentioned like your values of the 9-year-old can call out the professional athlete if they're not holding up to the level of standard that is appropriate in the gym. Now, I'd love to hear from your coaching perspective, right? I've asked a couple other coaches, either strength coaching or not, the same question, right? So obviously you've worked with a number of athletes, you've worked with professional athletes, you've worked with now athletes of different sports, you've worked with professional boxers now, which is different from when I was even training, and I know you're kind of in that space a lot more now. You're working with elementary school athletes, middle school athletes, high school athletes. Now, when you're coaching them up from like a mental perspective, I'd love to hear how you approach maybe coaching a boxer versus coaching a professional baseball player versus coaching a football player. Because even the nature of their sports, right? The boxer probably needs to have a little bit more of a killer in him than, let's say, the baseball player or the golfer or whoever you're coaching. How do you kind of shift gears? Or is it like, I'm going to keep the same tone with everyone? How does that kind of look?
No, yeah, that's a great question. No, of course, you're a chameleon, even within same sport, right? Even within same session. I talk to one athlete the one way, and I talk to another athlete another way. That goes back to our connection piece, right? Like when we sit down with the athlete in that initial kind of on-ramp or what we call an assessment, right? And it's, again, we keep talking about like the X's and O's versus the mental performance side. And really, they're like intertwined so heavily, right?
Yes.
We bring people in for force plate testing, but what we're really trying to establish is like, what does this person need? What type of coaching, what type of standard do I need to set for this athlete in order for him to be successful? So that's that. But I think, when I start to get that idea, I start to have an idea of the way I'm going to communicate, the way I'm going to coach. And then I just allow for there to be a fluid, dynamic relationship because ultimately, like, we are beings, right? The idea that, and I said this before and I messed it up before too on another podcast, is like a man never walks in the same river twice. Oh, I got it. A man never walks in the same river twice, right? The man is different, the river is different. It's the same thing with coaching. That kid that comes in, that 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old athlete, or that professional athlete are never the same, right? Every day is a little different. Oh, throwing went really well. Great. We get happy-go-lucky insert athlete name, right? Throwing didn't go really well, right? They were, grunting and hitting 83. Oh, now we get mad at the world, insert athlete name, right? The fighters, it's interesting because boxing and fighting from a mental perspective, especially pitching and boxing, are not that different.
Yeah.
It's a team sport. Yeah. It's a team sport, but you're out there on the mound all by yourself, right? And like the catcher can't really save you. No one can come and help you. Boxing much the same way. If you're in the actual ring, I can't come help. I'm in the corner. I'm waiting for you. I can call out commands. I can tell you what I see. When I get you back to the corner, I can give you some instruction. That's the dugout for you, right? I can give you some instruction. There's only so much change that can be made in that acute setting. So what it comes down to is you fall to the level of your preparation, both mentally and physically. So yeah, I think they're pretty similar, and that's across the board, right? So I work with some amateur boxers, but I also work with 3 all-time world champions. And I'm just a small gym in South Jersey, right? You mentioned we work with pro athletes. We've had a guy in every single Major League Baseball draft class since 2016. We don't
Yeah.
market professional athletes. So you
Right.
say, CJ, you're kind of flexing on us. Why? I think it demonstrates that the core value competency system that it goes throughout our programs scales up, down, and sideways, number one, and number two, produces a result that's worthwhile.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the answer. Unfortunately, I wish I had a more concrete answer. Like I talk to boxers like this, and
No.
but it's
I
fluid.
think you put it beautifully about the boxer and the pitcher analogy, because I really, now stepping away from the game a little bit, I got more, I guess, attached to watching like MMA fighters and listening to their mentalities, because I feel like, as stupid as it might sound, a lot of what they say, you've heard a reliever in the bullpen say the same shit. Like when they're like, I'm gonna go out there and kill this guy, like I'm the baddest guy, that they're like, the level of confidence that you have to have because you're out there on your own, and you do need to have that belief in yourself. Like, how many relievers have you played with that you've heard the same thing? They come out of the bullpen and they're like, I'm the baddest guy on the field, no one's gonna touch me today, right? Like, it's the same type of mano y mano, 1v1, let's see my best versus your best. And I really like that comparison that you had, because I think, I relate to that a ton, and I think it's super duper true.
Yeah, it's funny. The one thing I will say, the big difference is end of training sessions, and this is like a little bit physiological, right? Is that I do a ton of cardiac output and lactate conditioning with our fighters, depending on where they are in the camp. Whereas like I do very minimal, I do zero lactate work with throwers and very minimal cardiac output. We do some, but it's minimal. So the push, the push, right, that you need to get through a tough lactate session of all out 30-second sprints or something insane is a little bit different. And that's where you can reference back that there is a very real risk when you go into the ring. And again, when I'm comparing baseball to boxing, I'm really just comparing it in that way, in the communication style and how you're on.
Of course.
There's a very real danger to go
Yes.
into the ring. You can die. Like that's
Yes.
the reality of the situation. So I do. That is sometimes a lever that we pull on. The severity, not death, but the severity of the situation that's in front of them, right? Yeah, I need you to get through this. I don't want to today. Like, everybody knows the Rocky Balboa. There is no tomorrow. Rock him and Apollo.
Right.
Yeah, there is really some of that. Like, there is no tomorrow. Like, this has to be done today. And then, this is not a training podcast, but the physiological elements that you're balancing with boxers are, it's different than baseball.
Yeah.
For sure.
Definitely.
Simply because the technical and tactical demands of boxing is every single day, hours and hours. Whereas like throwers, pitchers, it's probably every day or 4 days, 5 days a week, but different modulating intensities in like 30 minutes, 45 minutes on those low intensity days, So, but that's neither here nor there. Nerd stuff, man. Nerd stuff.
We love it. That's what makes you great, man. That's what makes you great. Can you talk a little bit about the environment, right? So probably the most, or one of the most competitive
Yes.
that you can possibly go to as an athlete, right? Every single time you get out of break, it's almost like you get into your mental preparation. You're like, all right, one, I'm going to get better at ATS, but two, I'm about to go to war. You feel like every single time you step in a session, you're like, man, if Bizak outlifts me today in split squat, one, I'm going to have to hear about it until the next time we do it, right? So, like, you can't let it happen. And it made you feel, at least for me, like, it made you feel every single day you're going to train like it's your Super Bowl. Like, you have to be MJ Game 7 every single time you went to train. How did you kind of manufacture that environment, or is there some things that kind of just happened, right?
Yeah.
You know, how do you go about that?
Yeah. I think I wish I had a good, like, smart answer. Like, this is exactly how you manufacture this. But I think it really was just something that happened. We set a given standard for the way we were going to train, right? And that standard was with intensity, right? So in those early days, not good from a business perspective, but good from an environment perspective. In those early days, if you weren't going to be intense, you just left.
Yeah.
And
It's true.
the every gym owner and strength coach in the world refers back to the good old days, right? The good old days. The good old days, we used to just do X, right? We used to just do Y. If you were bleeding, you just put tape over it, right? Like all the things, right? Uh, and we were lucky enough that we were still able to, even to this day, inspire a level of intensity and grit that isn't very common. And I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier, the core values of our facility and the standard that we set. And then that concept of leadership is like throughout, right? You're pulling on that thread. So if I'm 12 years old and I'm in the gym and I'm watching those guys that are setting the example for me, I'm watching Trey go through an incredibly tough training session and he's giving everything he's got, and that's very clear to me. Immediately I catch that. I go, oh, wow, to get there, I have to do this. And if not, they're going to tell me to get out of here. And we still, to this day, have guys that, like, the culture is just not a fit for them. And that stinks. But it is what it is. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy in some ways, right? We're going to train with intensity because that's what we believe is the right way to train, number one. And number two, we believe it gets the best results, superior results, both physically and mentally. So, like, if that's the case, then we're going to continue to do it. So, yeah, to answer the question, I think it happened on accident, but I think it sticks around because of the standards and because of the values that we put forth.
Yeah, I think it is such a competitive environment in that gym. It's unbelievable. But, you brought up before, you said you've worked with professional athletes from every which way, all from across not just the United States, but I'm sure globally.
Yeah.
And you referenced it yourself. You said, we just own a gym in South Jersey. Now, that level of competitiveness, we've had guys come on this podcast from also all over the United States and have played different sports all over the country. Now, what does being in South Jersey kind of mean for the competitiveness and the grit and the culture of what you are cultivating at the gym? Because I've talked to a bunch of guys. We had Devin Smeltzer on here, who obviously has pitched all over. We've had DC on here, and they can't rave enough about growing up and playing baseball and training and working out in South Jersey because of kind of the hustle and culture and grit that is instilled in the community that we all have. A lot of the guys I play baseball with joke about all the time. It's like everybody who played baseball in South Jersey knows each other because you've played against each other, you've trained with each other, you've competed against one another. It's like a tight-knit community in a certain way. I'd love to hear kind of your perspective on the significance, I guess, of the region that we're in as far as like the gym and how it operates.
Yeah, well, I think the Northeast in general, like, we go faster, we go longer, and we're just ready to tell you that you're not as good as us. We're just ready to do that. So I think that plays right into my hand because that's who I am too. Right?
Yes.
That's who I am as a coach. That's who I am as a business owner. I'm just ready to tell you, you're just not as good as us. I don't know how else to put it to you. So, there's something definitely magical about that, right? The fighters that I work with are mostly here, centrated here, mostly from Philadelphia, right? And there's a grit to Philly. There's a grit. Everyone knows that. And it's funny because you go anywhere and everybody knows. In baseball, South Jersey, everybody knows, oh, you're a Northeast guy. So you don't have the environment that Florida, California, or Texas have where you can get outside on a field 12 months out of the year. You don't have that environment, right? So that means that you had to create for yourself, right? You had to create in suboptimal environments. Everybody knows that. In coming from a fighting perspective out of Philly or out of the Northeast, there's an expected level of grit, and there's also a fighting style, right? Everyone's heard of the Philly shell, and everyone's heard of the idea of being slick, right? Coming out of Philly fighters. But there's also a level of rigidity and respect around being a Philly fighter, around getting outside. And I think, some of it, I think two things here play into the weather, right? But getting outside and doing road work at 4:30 in the morning when there's snow on the ground is something that a fighter from Mexico doesn't have to experience. He just doesn't have to, right? So there's an inherent grit to it. And like we said, like the people here, right? So you have a very dense population in a very small area, A, and B, everyone is competitive, right?
Yes.
So now you've created like the perfect melting pot to win. And what happens is whoever rises above that, right? Whoever rises above the competitive nature of it is cream of the crop. So, yeah, I definitely think being in South Jersey plays right into our hand in terms of the culture and the values that we're trying to put forth. I think now more than ever, not to be an old guy, but I think now more than ever, people need a place to go with that culture and with those values instilled, and like I said earlier, a place where they can catch those values.
Yeah.
But it definitely helps. Definitely helps being right here in South Jersey. Everybody kind of speaks the same language.
Definitely.
Big time. So I got kind of two things a little bit. So one, I know we kind of touched upon the core values, right, of ATS. I don't know if we've gone through all of them, and if you don't mind spilling some of the sauce to the listeners on the core values. And then number two would be, can you give, like, let's say, up and coming coach, right, or somebody that's thinking about getting into the business, can you just give them like two internal and two external? It doesn't have to be two, but just your best internal coaching key to success and your best external coaching key to success as well.
Awesome. Yeah, so the core values, there's 5. I think we did hit them all, but let's go through. Lead from the front, right, which leadership requires no title. Hashtag A-Team, which the core concept there is that the gym is simply a family masquerading as a gym, right? So family first. Blue collar mindset, that's our version of the growth mindset, right? Fail forward. Failure is just an opportunity to learn and grow and succeed later. Hard hat mentality, right? Consistency beats intensity. Which one am I missing? Always a white belt, right? Our continually learning and growing and developing. Internal cue, number one internal cue, and the only internal cue you need to be a great coach. So this one, you just write it on the board, write it wherever you want. If you want to be a great coach, that's genuinely care. If you care more than the other guy who you're going against for the coaching role does about the person in front of them, you will win. You might not win today, but you will win in the long game. So genuinely care. And then the external cue that I'll say is the only way that we can objectively demonstrate that we care is to ask better questions. And so I'd say the external cue is that. And I would remember it this way. A good mentor of mine actually just mentioned it. I was at an event this past weekend. He mentioned this. Everyone's favorite radio station. It's WIIFM. What's in it for me? So like people, the sweetest sound to any human is their own name. Say people's names a lot, ask them a lot of questions about them, and then be able to demonstrate what you're doing and how it helps them. That's how you demonstrate that you genuinely care. So the two keys are tied together. It's genuinely care more than anybody else, and then 2, demonstrate it in a way that makes the most sense.
That's perfect. Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree with. Can you give me that acronym again? Because I'm going to try to keep that in the brain. I'm going to write that down.
WIIFM.
I love that. WIIFM. That's perfect. No, it is true. And I think, like you said, I think that ties back to your coaching style and the level of culture that you guys have kind of cultivated there is a genuine concern and collaboration almost. And I think the final question I kind of have before we're going to get into the last segment is, creating that culture, like you said, of kind of meeting people where they're at and getting them to talk about themselves, right? Like, what are some of those questions that you might cultivate in order to get an athlete to maybe share with you what their goals are? Because, you've had probably some athletes that maybe are embarrassed to say, as a high school athlete, oh, I want to be a professional baseball player, because it's like, I'm on JV, I'm on the bench on varsity, like, this seems like a dream, and now I'm working with this guy, and I don't want to come off as like, oh, I'm shooting for the stars, but, my true passion and goal and dream is I want to be a professional baseball player, a professional athlete. Like, what kind of questions do you guys kind of garner in order to create that, like, hey, we're open here. Your interests are my best interests that I want to help you kind of grow and succeed.
Yep. Yeah. So you want to use what we call the passion drill. So what'll happen is like an athlete will say something that isn't 100% true and honest, like you just said. Like, oh, I just want to like get better, right? That's true, but it's not 100% true and honest about like where you're trying to go. And so we'll just drill down into it, right? And what I mean by that is like it's not a specific question. It's just continuing to drill on the thread that they provided. So it's I want to get better. Well, what's important to you about getting better? I don't understand what you mean. Oh, well, I want to get faster. That's great. What's important to you about getting faster? I can definitely help you with that. Well, like getting faster will help me like get off the bench. What's important about get off the bench? What's that mean to you?
Yes.
So it's levels. We used to call it the 5, 6, 7. I actually have 5, 6, 7 tattooed somewhere on me. I was looking at my arms to see where that might be. Yeah, there it goes.
Yeah, there it is.
So it used to be called the 5, 6, 7, and the idea and the concept there is that if you ask somebody what's important to them about their goal 5, 6, and 7 times, not 6, 7, but 5, 6, and 7 times, you actually get to their deeper purpose, right? So around 5 and around 6, you'll start to hear things about what really motivates and drives them. And around 7, you'll hear the thing that is most important to them in the world if they play along. So but we call it the passion drill, and we just continue to drill on the thread they gave us. So, hey, I want to whatever, insert metric goal that they probably just saw on their way into the building. Like, oh, I'm better at that thing, right? We just continue to drill down into it till we get to the honest idea. And even less important to me is like where you want to end up, and more important is why you want to end up there. So if you do want to be a professional ball player, what's it mean to you, right? Like, is it simply ego? And that's okay if it is, but I want to know that because I'm going to communicate with somebody who's driven solely by their own ego than someone who's driven by like, hey, my dad gave up everything for me to play baseball, and I want to do this to honor him. Like, it's just a different. And I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong.
Right.
It's a different communication tactic that I'm going to use. And I think and to just really quick hone in on that ego concept. Like, we all do stuff for our egos. Like, no matter what.
Of course.
We are all fallible humans by definition, and we all do stuff for our egos. I'm guilty of it as well. It's something that I'm praying on every single day. Is like, just be better at doing this less, right? Because I know I'm not going to not do it, right?
Of course.
I'll say something, I'll do something, like our big goal right now is to open 10 locations, and we're definitely going to do it. That I can say with relative certainty that it has almost nothing to do with my ego, and it is completely wrapped up in the impact we can have in the community. On the flip side of that, I'll have different things that I do within the business, and someone will ask me, why are you doing that? I'll answer truthfully because it's something I'm really working on and praying on every day. I'll be like, yeah, because it's just like I want to, and like I think it's going to make me feel better. Like that's my ego, right? Like,
right.
Why are you giving? This is a really good example. Why are you giving away? Like, we're giving away at the Appies. We're giving away like over 260 like different things, right, at the Appies. It's like, what is that number? I don't know. It's like my ego, right?
Yeah.
I got an ice sculpture for the Appies. Like, why? Because I thought it would be cool. Like, that's an ego.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was like, well, what other gyms have an ice sculpture at their events? Like, none. So I will then. That's ego,
right?
That doesn't make more of an impact. It's cooler, but it does make more of an impact. So I think we all do stuff from ego, and it's not necessarily wrong, but being able to identify why we want to do what we want to do is one of the superpowers of a coach. If I can find out what the athlete in front of me, why he wants to do that, I can really do my best coaching after the fact.
Yeah, no, and I mean, speaking firsthand, you guys obviously do a great job with that, and have, really did that with me and kind of understanding like, why do you want this and how can we get you to the next level? So again, like, just firsthand appreciate what you guys do because, you guys kill it over there. So appreciative for the experiences.
Me, man. It's
course.
Unreal. Like I said earlier, it's like, this is an unreal moment for me. I've been having them a lot. I'm going to try not to cry this time. I got like a 3 times a week crying limit. I already hit it, and it's Wednesday. So, yeah.
Listen, you have a baby girl now, so you can cry as much as you want. I'm in the same boat. I totally get it. So no judgment here.
Wait, baby girl?
No, baby boy.
I was going to say, all right, cool. I alluded to your son earlier. I'm like, dude.
Yes.
Don't tell me I got
No, son. You got it right. You got it right. All right, see, I think this is a perfect time to get to our last segment, which is the Fast Five. We're going to give you five semi-rapid fire questions on mental performance in sports. You kind of just give us your best answer, what kind of, comes to the brain first, and then we'll go from there. Awesome. All right, first question. What part of your identity did sports help you discover?
Leadership, my ability to lead, and my desire to do it.
Perfect. Love that. Now, question two. Looking back, what moment felt like the end for you, but ended up just being a new beginning?
So I am in junior college on Thanksgiving Day or Black Friday. I broke my leg playing pickup football. Yeah, sick, dude. And, and I had to call my coach and tell him, like, dude, my leg's broken. It wound up being a new beginning. I wound up playing that season on that broken leg. Loosely recovered from it. I couldn't really make left turns, so rounding bases was very interesting. And I wore an Evo Shield backwards, to cover it. But
Yeah.
it definitely taught me a new level of grit and resilience that I didn't have previous to that.
Awesome. Question three now. When everything around you is chaotic, what's one habit that brings you back to center?
Yeah, I don't know if you're allowed to say this on podcast or whatever, but God, 1,000%. I'm a Christian. Jesus lives in me, and I every single day make it a point to dive into that Bible. And everybody always asks me, how much do you read? How do you get through it all? I don't. The answer is that I don't. I read one page of the Bible every day. So it'll be a while before I get to the end. But yeah, it always seems to bring me solace. It always seems to bring me back to earth, back to grounded, back to zero, whatever it means. But yeah, I think, as believers, we're called to share that burden, right? Come unto me, all who are weary, and you will find rest. And that's something that whenever the whole world starts to light up, that's where I go.
Yeah, that's awesome. Number four, what belief about yourself did you have to unlearn in order to grow as an athlete or now as a coach?
That I think the thing that I had to unlearn was that I was just insert whatever it was. Just right. When I was a baseball player, I was just a baseball player. When I became a coach, I was just a coach. Right. And so often we want to put ourselves into these small boxes that limit our potential. And when I became a business owner, then I was just a business owner. And now when I look at it, I think about I'm an athlete. I'm still an athlete. I do some stuff. I do some athletic stuff, right? I'm still a coach. I love coaching. I was put on earth to coach. And then if you can break the idea of you start to realize that there's overlap and there's gray zones for all of the quote unquote roles or boxes that you put yourself in. The way I lead is much like the way I coach. The way I own a business is much like the way I follow Christ. The way I follow Christ is a whole lot like the way I coach. And you're like, oh my God, this is all, there's overlap here. So the concept that I had to unlearn was just.
I love that. Now, last question. Number five, what does success feel like to you now? And how has that changed since you began?
Yeah, success now for me is impact. And when I say impact is done at a acute scale chronically. So you make impact every single day, every single hour, every single minute one of our facilities is open, we make impact. And then that's done over time consistently to ultimately create what I think of when I think of impact, which is a happier, healthier, stronger South Jersey, and then a happier, healthier, stronger world. So that's what success feels like to me right now. It feels like impact. I get that jump, that juice when someone tells me their story and then I played a small role in it, right? So you guys were just telling me about those stories. Now I have so much energy. I'm not going to sleep tonight because I'm juiced up. Because that's what success feels like to me, right? I don't have a number that I'm necessarily trying to go for in terms of monetary value or revenue or a price point on our company. But I do have very specific numbers in terms of how many families we want to impact month over month. So I think that's what it looks like for me right now.
Man, I love that. And that is a banger to end on. I do love that. And CJ, we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, sharing your company's values, sharing your values, sharing kind of how you work with athletes and how you approach all of that, and your transition, all these athletes' transitions, and all the success stories that you've helped cultivate. So truthfully, we really are appreciative for you and kind of what you've meant in both of our journeys, and now continually creating that impact and changing people's lives. So I really do appreciate you coming on and sharing all that with us.
Man, I appreciate you guys having me. If anybody needs anything at all, just reach out, say the word. I'm happy hour everywhere you can find me. Just happy hour with no H. And, yep, let me know. Let me know how I can help. I'd love to.
Amazing. All right. Again, thank you for coming on, CJ. And
Absolutely.
this was a banger. I appreciate you, man.
Thanks, man. Hopefully there were some writer downers in there.